This is a test of City of Palaca audio system.
Meeting to order. Pastor Mulberry, will we have the invitation? Please?
Father, we thank you again for this day. We thank you for your loving kindness and for the multitude of your tender mercy. Thank you because you are still God. You stand alone in your beauty and in your glory. That you have blessed this coming together for this special session. Be the invited guest here. God, take control. You know what to do. You know how to do it. Touch every one of us, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Commissioner Castle, can you have the pledge, please?
I'll in place, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Krantz?
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Tammy McCaskill,
Here.
Commissioner Justin Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Will Jones, Commissioner Rufus Bowen, Mayor Robbie Correa.
Present.
We have all present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We are here for a special call workshop. Could you please read that notice, Ms. Krantz?
Certainly. To Commissioners Tammy McCaskill, Will Jones, Rufus Borum, and Justin Campbell. You're hereby notified that a special called workshop is scheduled to be held on March 20th, 2023 at 5:30 at City Hall, 201 North 2nd Street, Black, Florida, 32177. The purpose of the workshop is to discuss procedures for the selection of a city manager and or an interim city manager, including utilizing city staff and or search firm services. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Signed, Mayor Roberta Correa.
Thank you. We're going to open up the floor to public comments. Ms. Kitchens?
Liquid Kitchens, 1027 South Pearl Street, Black, Florida. If you consider whatever policy you're going to set, I said today, I'm going to set policy today because it's a workshop, but whatever policy you're going to send to the city commission to vote on, I would suggest that you pay attention to the city code, subchapter A, article 3, section 36 through 39, specifically deals with the city manager. Section 38 addresses the acting city manager, and now we do have an assistant city manager. But I'm going to read it to you. It's very brief. By a letter filed with the city clerk, the city manager shall designate a city officer or employee to exercise the powers and perform the duties of city manager during the manager's temporary absence or disability. The city commission may revoke such designation at any time and appoint another officer of the city to serve under the city manager until the city manager returns. So I think when you think about setting policy for interim city manager, your code authority spells it out, and you also have an assistant city manager. The other thing is, which may or may not come into your policy, but I have watched commissions and I was on the commission, all the way up and including this commission, the city manager applicants and ask them everything except what the duties are. How are you going to stabilize Pulaski? How are you going to bring in business? How are you going to revitalize Pulaski? How are you going to do economic growth? How are you going to put us forward? How do you give us progress? There are 13 duties under city code, article 3, 94, section 39. I'll try to read them briefly and fast. You can look them up. Okay, I'll read it. Appoint when necessary. Here's what the city manager does. Appoint when necessary, suspend and remove the police chief, fire chief, finance director, city clerk, and city attorney with the concurrence of a majority of the city commission. Appoint and when necessary, suspend and remove all other city employees expenses otherwise provided by law. This charter or personnel rules adopted pursuant to this charter or ordinance. Direct and supervise the administration of all departments, offices, and agencies of the city, except as otherwise provided by this charter or by law. Attend all city commission meetings. The city manager shall have a right to take part in discuss but shall not vote. See that all laws, provisions of this charter, and acts of the city commission subject to enforcement by the city manager and by officers subject to the city manager's direction and supervision are faithfully executed. Further, submit the annual budget and capital program to the city commissioners. Submit to the city commission and make available to the public a complete report on the finances and administrative activities of the day as of the end of each fiscal year. Make other such reports as the city commission may require concerning the operations of city departments, offices, and agencies, subject to the city manager's direction and supervision. Keep the city commission fully advised as to the financial condition and future needs of the city. Make recommendations to the city commission concerning the affairs of the city. provide some staff support services with the mayor and commission members, perform such other duties as are specified in this charter or may be required by the city commission, and to act as a purchasing agent for the city. In the capacity of purchasing agent, he shall sell all the property that has become unfit for use by the city, or the has been declared surplus, he shall sell all property that has become unfit for use by the city, or that has been declared surplus by the city commission. All such purchases and sales shall be made in conformity to such regulations as the city commission may from time to time prescribe. That's the duties of the city manager, not economic development agent, not refurbishing people active, not bringing in businesses, not giving people jobs. So I would suggest when you quiz them about the RFPs, and you keep the city code in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Saying none, we'll close public comment. On to discussion, the procedures for the selection of city manager and or interim city manager, as described before, including inviting city staff and or search firms. Commissioner Campbell, do you have any thoughts?
Recommend that we go along with this ICMA recruitment guidelines for selecting local government administrators.
Commissioner Jones?
As before, my recommendation is to hire a search firm.
Commissioner Brown? And your thoughts?
Oh, so like I said, again, whatever the pleasure of the commission is, but have no push to get a city manager. So for me, right away, my main thing is get a finance director here. So whatever the will of the commission.
Commissioner McCaskill?
Can Commissioner Jones repeat what he said, please, if I may?
Commissioner Jones, please.
As our recommendation has not changed. I feel that we should hire a search firm. Put it back out on the street for bid as we agree to our meeting.
The state would recommend hiring a search firm. What did the cost entail of, what were the costs entail of hiring a search firm?
We received 3 proposals. I think they've been provided to you. Without trying to quote the numbers in each, they ranged generally between $25,000 and $35,000 per search. And that's based upon so the 25,000 then or so.
And that does not, that's the base fee, correct? That doesn't include.
Well, as I recall, in looking at the proposals, they were a percentage of the salary. So, you know, Ms. Jones prepared that, and if that's what their numbers are, that shows a flat fee of $25,000 for first recruitment, not to exceed 23.6 on the second fleet of management, and then the third one going not to exceed 24.9. I thought they were based on percentages of salary, but if that's what they say, then.
Okay, and at our last, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you still on that?
No, you.
And you asked about you were more along the lines of making sure that we find a finance director.
Yeah, based on where we're at right now, we have more of a need for a finance director when auditing season. And I think that's more important. We got Don in place until May. And Don absent, Jonathan is the acting city manager. I think we just need to evaluate the process during those terms, and then take a look and see if John can fit in that role, and we just move on from there. But I think we'll need to push so fast for city manager.
Can you give them an update as well on where the finance director, please?
Very hopeful. I extended an offer. I believe that we're going to have that, candidate in on Thursday, is that correct now? She's coming back for a second visit on Thursday to look around, and basically get a better idea of the environment and so forth. But, I'm very hopeful that, he's, in my opinion, very qualified. He's a CPA. She is a finance director now. He has a long background in the accounting and financial field. She's been a professor at a university. After conversations with her on 2-3 occasions now, Ms. Thomas was involved in one, Ms. Stone was involved in one. I believe she'd be a very good fit for the city of Palatka. Jonathan, I apologize. Well, I can't see him. I can see that too. So, but don't you agree, Ms. Jones?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes, that's good. And then, if all of that works out, it'll be an approximate.
She, and I was very impressed with this as well. She indicated she needed a month because she's presently finance director in a different town. And she said she needed a month to, basically help them with that transition because they're in season 2.
Yeah.
So, but during that time, she said she would help us in addition, and she would be, she has a daughter who's a doctor in Orlando, and her primary reason for changing jobs is to be closer to her. She has a son who's a surgeon on the West Coast of the United States, and
That couple, don't care if you.
I did not push that far, to be honest with you. We were very pleased with her. We interviewed her, basically, in person, and then spoken with her on the phone as well, and, checked not just for criminal record and so forth, but also with employers. She has nothing but glowing comments to this point. I'm very pleased with her. I think she's extremely well qualified.
Okay, so we keep our fingers crossed on that, and if it moves forward, we can accomplish that.
So, we already talked about the amount of the cost with the proposals going out, 25,000, 35 per state to use the search firm. Have we considered asking if our assistant city manager, have we spoken with him? See how he would feel about the city manager position? Did anyone ask him about it, or is it okay if we ask him how he would feel about filling in the shoes of the city manager?
I asked them, Commissioner.
I would like to ask him, okay, it's okay if I put you on the spot and ask you what you did.
We talked about it.
Of course, it's okay, you put me on the spot, Commissioner. I've spoken to a couple of you. I know we're trying to plan for Don's departure. I'll remind you, Thomas's departure. I think there's some of us around here trying to convince her to stay around a little bit longer. Hopefully that's going to happen. But to answer your question more directly, I would be more than willing to serve in an interim capacity. I've been here for 12 and a half years, born and raised in Putnam County. I'm open to the idea.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm a tad bit confused, and I'd like to seek clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Your question was to the intern position, or was it to city manager?
City manager.
Because I believe that it was stated previously that he was not interested in seeking that position. So that's why I wanted to bring clarity to make sure it wasn't interim, or was it the overall?
And I spoke with him at one point, and he did share that he had a reluctance in the role at that time at one point. But I mean, if he's not in that position and may have changed his mind, because sometimes we do feel a reluctance to spread our wings in some roles. So
Since he is right here, do you basically want to have?
I don't, I
you just want to.
wanted clarity.
Okay.
I feel, I mean, it's good that we're looking to set some guidelines if we're in, if we come to that point of having to hire a city manager again. I don't want us to look at them, we're in the business of hiring and firing city managers, where we always have to look at guidelines. And of course, we know that whatever guidelines we do set, that other commission boards do not have to follow the guidelines that we set. We do want something in place in case we come to that fork in the road again. But, I would definitely recommend having Jonathan serving the role as our city manager. I mean, as far as looking, hiring a search firm, I'm not looking to go down that road. We got Jonathan right here, who I feel can really do the job. I don't know if this is the time to talk about that's the recommendation that, we're looking for, but that's the direction that I would like to work.
And this is a workshop, so as far as action being taken,
Just giving my thoughts as we all.
That's fine, but I think what we have printed here, it clearly states procedures for the selection of the city manager or the interim manager. I don't think.
Thank you. This is the workshop. I'm just giving my thoughts. And it's good that we can put guidelines in. I'm glad that we're getting direction, but we do need to keep in mind that whatever we do, subsequent commissions do not have to follow our guidelines. And, we don't even have to follow, we can change them at any point.
You can do whatever you want with guidelines, but
Yes.
policy, you have to follow whatever policy that's put in, but you can do arbitrarily do what you want to do with the policy, but guidelines, you got attitude.
Yeah.
so given all of that, if the intent of this workshop was to come up with a procedure, and still not clear to me, I know that Commissioner Jones has suggested we use a search firm. We do have a job description for the city manager. That's pretty clear to me. Of course, it says that additional duties would be added. When we say procedure, what are we looking for? Are we just saying the search firm? Are we considering other options? And I'm certainly open to, Mr. Griffith being the interim city manager as well. I will just put that out on the table. But what exactly do we want to accomplish at this workshop?
What we need to accomplish is, as I hear the dialogue, one of the things is procedures and policy. We need to understand that we are policymakers, so we need to, this is what the workshop is about, go ahead and put a policy in place so that from this point forward, we're going to follow the policy, and whoever come behind us follow that policy to select a city manager. And Allegra Kitchens was reading, what's stated now, excuse me, in our codes. But one thing she forgot is we're at the commission, we actually hire a city manager. So that's after we hire them, they do have the responsibility. But right now we're looking to hire a city manager. So this is proper what we're doing. And just to address Mr. Griffith, we all agreed that we just created a position as assistant city manager. An assistant city manager thing, one of the duties is to stand in when the city manager is out. I don't understand a promotion, then a subsequent promotion, less than 3 months, doing that particular job. And I spoke with Mr. Griffith as well. I mean, I have confidence in what he does, but I haven't seen him in the capacity of the city manager or assistant city manager yet, but long enough to make that determination. That's personal, if you ask me. The reason for these policies being set so that we don't just because someone has been tenured, we put them in a position. There are qualifications, and that's what I like to tell Madam Mayor. We need to set what are the qualifications of a city manager? We know what the duties and responsibilities, that was clear. But what are we, I know I asked it in the last meeting, what are we looking for in the city manager? We need to make that plain and clear going forward. Because to just give a synopsis, to a headhunter or a search firm, we need to be clear on what we're looking for. Who do we need? What are their strong points need to be? Management, managing people, these processes. What are we as a commission collectively are looking for? And that's just something that should be bundled together by us and prioritized in our search.
Okay, with that said, have you reviewed the job description as it stands now,
So that was the second question I had. Since our last candidate had the job description been changed or altered in any way that you know of, or anybody, or maybe I asked you, Joe,
No, sir.
same job description. What about qualifications? I didn't see those in this packet.
It is, it is.
Can you show what page? I'm reviewing it again.
You know, switch. But after the announcement of this workshop, right here.
It says essential duties and responsibilities, general purpose, ability to. Now, see everything it says qualification.
And you're looking for a specific
You
rate.
used it. If I'm missing it, please show me.
So this is what you're looking at, right? That's it.
Yes, that doesn't, am I missing it?
The qualifications that, okay. And that was advertised with specific qualifications, I would guess, when we advertised the position. Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Please.
I'm going to get, a copy of your, apparently a page is missing, I'm not sure what was.
Please come up.
No, I was just saying, apparently a page, because it does have qualifications on there for years of experience should be on the job description that was advertised. So I'm not sure what you guys have in the. So it appears that a page is missing, and if it's the pleasure of the commission, I will go up and print that page.
Madam Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
as to why I put one in the agenda packet that I did, I went online to the city's website, logged into the job portal and pulled exactly what was advertised. Their job, it ends in ability to,
Okay, go down some more things.
there's no more to go down.
It's the 2 pages, general purpose, essential duties, and responsibility. And if you go down further under the job ID star page, there's something up there.
No, ma'am.
It should be, it just appears you're missing something if you.
You're welcome to come take me by my mouse if you'd like.
No. But there's
Yeah.
space for vacation. So we just take a recess from.
Why do we have, she can go get that, I don't think we
Ms. Thomas? Well, go ahead, I didn't hear you.
Just going over the stairs.
So to make a recommendation prematurely without, again, we need to be clear on that. So that the candidates can be clear on what they're applying for. And we could also make an assessment who's qualified. I think that's how we do it. And it should be in the packet. The complete package should be before us.
And unfortunately, it didn't happen, but Ms. Jones is getting that.
So I'll wait to see if she shows up this may I may have questions.
So I guess my question would be, and I've heard the recommendations and I don't have any feelings towards that. However, what happens if another person on the same level of the organizational chart is interested in this position? And we're making a recommendation for someone, just say for instance, we have someone else in the city that works for the city that may be interested in that position, but we are solely specifically giving it to one person. Have we given consideration to others?
I said that was the recommendation.
I just asked the question.
And I'm answering your question. I said that was the recommendation, and I'm going, and I said, and And if we talked about the Putnam product of Putnam, we want to grow our own. So it would be good to consider both candidates or how many other candidates that apply. So we consider both. That's a recommendation that I said because we did have a discussion on the diet that we would like to start growing our own because of that.
And again,
We
I'm
would
not,
consider both.
I don't disagree, but then again,
That's just a recommendation.
my problem where I'm hung up on, and again, like you said, we do have the ability to change our minds at any given time.
Mhm.
But upon being given, and this is nothing directly, but the question was asked, was he interested in becoming
Yes.
the city manager?
Mhm.
And even tonight, he said he's interested
Yeah.
in be serving as the interim. So are we pushing for someone to take a job again that they're not interested in? Just because, not saying not interested, because what I heard tonight, he specifically said as serving as the interim. He said nothing about longevity of serving as the city manager.
You want to use our word wisely instead of pushing. The question was if and never push. Did you feel that you were pushed or compelled to go into the position of the city manager, or how did it make you feel when I asked you the question? And where are you?
No, I did not feel pushed or pressured in any way, and Commissioner Campbell, I will answer that directly to you, sir. Like I said, I've been here 12 and a half years. This commission, previous commissions have accomplished a lot. I feel privileged to have worked with you and even previous elected officials. I have seen 11 city managers counting interims. So previously there was some hesitation on my part. I'm 39 years old. I've got a 7-year-old and now a 12-year-old. But I have talked to some individuals, prayed on it, spoken to my family, and I am interested in the city manager role. At this time, if you'd like to place me in the interim position, I'm here to serve. If not, I'm your assistant city manager. I'll do the best I can.
Thank you. But once again, I wanted to make sure in verbiage that it was specifically stated that it was interim. That's why I wanted to bring it back to get clarification. But then again, what we're here for is to, I think, for lack of better words, this meeting has been hijacked because we're here for a certain cause. And of course, we all have recommendations that we have, but that's not what we're here. We're here for policies and procedures.
Okay, and with that said, I'm assuming Ms. Jones will be back with the additional information shortly. So we're looking even at what we have for the basic job description without specific qualifications, which they don't exist, we can add, obviously. Is there anything, any modifications now to this that this is just, I'm not even sure when this job description was developed. It'd be nice if they would date in the future. Just so we know, but is anybody,
I think
and pretty standard verbiage.
you got a city manager that is gonna execute the day-to-day operations and whatever the vision and mission is of the commission and follow the charter. Basically, that's what they're gonna do. And so I think Jonathan is very capable of getting the job done in the absence of, I don't know, with him being here. And the reason I consider it as well is because even though we you know, you can run searches for different people, most of the time you're gonna find in the portal that they have, you can do as many searches as you like. But there's a reason why people transition from city manager roles. And if you got a person who has demonstrated the abilities to perform at the levels and have excellent track records and have things that you can be comfortable with, as opposed to getting somebody who you don't know what they're going to be bringing to the table. You know, that's why I'm preferable to Jonathan in that role. He's been here demonstrated the ability that he can carry out No.
I agree with that. I think, again, we're back to the policy and procedure, which was, again, what we were checking for and what, the requested. And now we have the policy here in the So with that said, and yes, this is fairly standard verbiage.
First and basic.
And so if I may, this is the language that also, Sonny, where you were at on there, if you went down a little bit further, this is the language that's listed, it's in a different box. But this is the language of the qualifications that's listed under that job description.
I have a question, and just keeping at this. One, where did this come from? Two, the possession of Florida driver's license, like how can we make that a recommendation if this is a natural search, like had this been gone over and it's been tailored to the needs of us, or I'm just seeing like one of the possessions of a Florida driver's license, it's like,
If that was not somebody that, and I'll just say, if we picked a candidate from Michigan, and they came with a Michigan license, they would have to transfer their license over. They may not have it, but their background would fail at Michigan as well because they were there, would have been. But a Florida driver's license is going to be a requirement for them to change that license over. They wouldn't be able to retain and become a resident of Florida and keep that Michigan license. They would have to surrender.
I think you may have to change the phrase that.
I think this needs to be phrased on the hiring, like, because as it reads now, the recommendation is that you have to be in possession of a Florida driver's license.
So we don't want them to have any city manager experience at all? Because that, no method in there, I mean.
Maybe the first time you have an opportunity to become one.
Speak clear, I can hear you.
It may be the first time that you're becoming an assistant or a city manager. I mean, how can I become a principal or an assistant principal if I've never been one before? So you may not have the opportunity to have had that experience. This may be your first time. So you get what I'm saying? No, they may not have had the opportunity to have had those previous experience.
That goes almost along with what Commissioner Campbell was saying, because you're omitting that, that's what we're looking for. And the
I'm not
qualification.
omitting that that's what I'm looking for as a commissioner. I'm looking for someone that can come in and
You're right.
do a job of a
Because
city manager.
I'm talking about just, I was talking to you interrupted me. So again, point of clarity is what I was saying. If we're looking for a city manager candidate, if we're looking for, I understand progressive responsibility. But if we're looking for a city manager, we want to see somebody that have that experience. Here, we're bringing a policy together. Okay, so it could be in here, and I think it should be added in here because that's what we're looking for. City manager, some type of city manager experience. That doesn't mean that the candidate is going to have it. They're going to be a viable candidate. And have you ever seen verbiage say preferred master's degree, but the person don't have it, could be working towards it. Maybe the central work of the person that we look for has related field experience that will be equal to. But we are looking for a city manager. I think that's important. You know, nobody has to agree with that. I want to make that point.
And that's fine, and it does say experience in management administration for an equivalent combination of training and experience, which can encompass all of that. And I understand where Commissioner Castle is coming from, upward mobility for people. They have to be provided that opportunity. You're just not automatically, we're just not gonna automatically get everybody that's a city manager candidate, but their combined experience maybe that make them more than qualified to be a city.
It depends on who you are, I guess.
And I guess I'm still stuck on the document and I'm going back to the training and experience. It says to graduation from a 4-year college Never mind, I call it a mistake. Never mind, I got it.
Okay.
Oh, no, let me bring it. 4 years or college university with a major in business administration or a closely related field. What is a closely related field? Can we not just say obtain, because I could have graduated with 1 degree and completely changed the course of my field and it disqualify me because I don't, it's not that major or a closely related field. So I graduated with criminology, so am I not qualified? It's nowhere near business administration, or so am I disqualified? Because it's not a closely related field, but I've transitioned as life happened, and now I'm on the administration side. I just don't want to disqualify you.
Right, and then it does say at least 10 years of progressively responsible experience.
It says and at least, it doesn't say or at least, it says and at least.
Or an equivalent combination of training experience. So again, is the just change to make it and or? What is the?
I'm just making sure that, again, it says, I'm going by what it can be clear though, at this point. I don't want no, but I'm fine. If you are, if legal is fine, I'm fine. I just want to make sure that we're not disqualifying it. But the last sentence does.
That,
Clear it
so, yeah, so that's the last sentence. Kind of offsets there to when it says or an equivalent combination of training and experience. Kind of helps answer Commissioner Campbell's question as to the qualification process if a person does not have a degree in a closely related field or in that field.
As I read it, it's the and it has the educational requirements and the experience requirements. And those are a combination with the two. I see the equivalent combination being with the experience. And not, and the educational is separate. And but you're establishing a policy and procedure here, so you can change it as you read.
So you probably want to do the and or in your educational part. If they don't not to
Yeah.
qualify.
Right.
So 10 years work-related experience as well would take in it, like you're saying, Commissioner McCaskill, in it aspiring young person that have spent years in college and received their education and maybe only have 5 years of experience of working professionally and have been exemplary work. Would they be excluded because they don't have a 10-year? They have 5, I mean, 10 years that's a 10-year that's a lot. Just like you just said, you aspire to be a principal, you ain't gonna probably get 10 years in the classroom. You want to do it within 5 to 8, something like that. 10 years is that's a barrier, I think, to overcome.
It is, they're basically saying 6 years beyond your 4 years of college.
Right.
And that's good, and that's a good conversation to have. Two, however, if you look at it, if we put the or at least 10 years, that means that you're actually, you have experience out of field. However, if you have the experience in field, you won't need those 10 years. I mean, you can come out the gate with it more than this. Am I right? Am I looking at it right? Because the 10 years,
Ms. Thomas,
we're giving you on the job training. Am I right? Because the 10 years is saying without the degree in the related, without the degree in the field or the closely related degree. Right? You're either gonna have the degree in the field or the closely related degree. If you don't, your 10 years can trump that.
Can I make a suggestion?
yes, you can.
So, I'm sorry, were you about to say something? Go ahead. So, listening to your conversation, I'm asking what your thoughts would be about the following. graduation from a four-year college or university, and at least 10 years of progressively responsible experience in management and or administration, or a combination of experience and education. That would allow you to piggyback with 6 years of experience with 4 years of education to come up with a total of 10. It eliminates the emphasis on any particular major, but leaves in experience in management and or administration.
Thomas? You were going to say that.
Because it's like we have almost the same wording sometimes. So I agree with the city manager's suggestion.
And you said 10 year progressive,
Combination.
Or a combination of education and experience. So that would let you have 4 years of college and 6 years of experience for a total of 10.
oh,
So graduation from a four-year college or university, if there's nothing specific about major,
right.
major field of study, and at least 10 years of progressively responsible experience in management and or administration, or a combination of experience and education. So that would mean basically you eliminate the major field of study requirement. The 6 years, you could actually, with the 10-year either or, you could actually have 6 years of college and 4 years of experience, or 4 years of college and 6 years experience, or whatever.
You can do 4 years bachelor's,
Right.
master.
Yeah, written, you had your base education in business or public administration. And then that's where I think we need to clean it up.
Okay, any other suggestions, recommendations for the training experience category?
The first way, I just think that 10 years, handicap and food, and, again,
The duration of 10 years?
yeah. I mean, people, I guess, I think you guys said it earlier, people are not going to stay on job for 10 years and hopes to move up. Very few people will get an opportunity to move in those kind of positions, an administrative and
Wouldn't have to.
safer exit. Pardon me?
It wouldn't have to. 4 years and 6 years experience is all this would take.
Right, they have a college degree and,
That's just my comment.
yeah,
Do you want to say something, Commissioner Warren? Is there anything else?
what would you like to see? Would you like to see it lower, like 7, maybe, or?
Well,
8?
I just put the thought out there. But I do feel that, because I'm quite sure as I sit here and look, and I'm thinking about our workforce that we have right now with the city. I'm quite sure we have individuals that have the degrees, but haven't been in administration for 5 years. Whether it's here or anywhere else at this point, maybe their first opportunity was here and they see. And I'm going to tell you, I'm thinking outside the box. I'm thinking about somebody who's like Suncrans. Suncrans says, and I know she's not applying, but that's that person that's up there and know everything about city operations inside. And sorry, son, for using it, but that's how the confidence I have in it. But someone like that aspiring, college degree, working, and know the intricate details of getting things done, know the people. In 2 years, she get her master's or whatever, she may be ready for that, but she won't be able to apply. That's just one individual I was thinking about. Well, later we have to cater the job description. I think, no, we should have a solid plan and say something that's realistic. Somebody come here within the 5 years and say, listen, I'm ready, or they get appointed by the city manager to take on that role. I don't know, everybody's not gonna get those opportunities. That's all I'm saying. They're not gonna get those opportunities to come in and work for 10 years and then be appointed to one of those positions.
But if you have that 4-year degree, again, it's 6 years that you would have to work.
So it's not really 10 years.
Right. But if you want, I mean, if you want.
Good.
Recommendation of board, Commissioner,
I think,
it would, it could potentially, just say for instance, it could fit, that category to where, they have their degree. And what, just an example, that position that the city clerk is in, just say from there 4 years, then if she worked 2 or 3 years, if you put it at the 7 or 8 year period, provided that there's demonstrated, abilities to operate in those capacities, and then it'd be pretty much up to the commission to say, yea or nay, move it forward or not, you know.
Ms. Thomas, go ahead.
One phrase that you can put in all of this is preferred, preferable.
probably 10 years or 6
That's
years.
why I just add that, and that was by.
Right, about 6, preferably 6 years.
Well, I think we're saying preferable 10, but that we would consider
Yeah,
other
you can consider that.
things considered. We would look at an individual based on their skill level of education, et cetera, and if it's less than 10, it doesn't preclude consideration of that person as an applicant.
Correct, and if you look at your, past history in the city of Palaca, you have had people that you have appointed as city manager that
Don't
have not
mean-
fit within the box.
Right.
That
That's
you
not-
have people.
So it's up to the discretion of the commission, you know, to make those calls, we have that discretion.
So I think the word, in terms of preferable covers that, so then we don't have to rehash this over and over again. Is there anything else that we need to add to training and experience? Is there, when this hasn't been a consistent practice either, is there some consideration of that person, or requirement of that person to live within the city limits? If you want other people to come and invest in the city, why wouldn't you invest in it as a city manager in the future? I'm just asking that question. Can you do that? Legally, can you do? Well,
We can.
let's have, I'm giving it to Ms. Thomas for that.
See, I wasn't the one that tried to play council that time.
The question is, can you add, and I don't know that we want to, but can you add a requirement for the city manager reside within the city limits? And when it's Thomas,
You can, but as you know, in this present city of Palaca, finding housing in the city is not that easy. So if you put that restriction, I think that you may be handicapping yourself.
I agree.
We can put preferred.
I mean, and I think most people who are the city managers would prefer to live in the city and would try to do their best.
can we use the word preferable again?
Well,
I mean, not, I understand what you're saying, it eliminates a lot of folks as possible candidates. Go ahead, Commissioner Long.
I think what we also need to consider as well is, they need to be within a certain, radius of the city. So from a response time period, I mean, that's what we put in there before, and I think that would be applicable now. Well, we need to define whatever that time period of 10 to 15 minutes or 12 miles or 10 miles within the city. Within the city limits, 10 miles out.
We can just put preferable and then we'll see what happens.
No, we need to make sure that,
Well,
because if we don't do that, then they might be somewhere on
The East Coast.
Atlantic Beach or.
okay. So can we say within the county limits, or do you want to?
We're just following the extremities of the county, we got a big county.
One set, 12,
What about this? Because we as commissioners and mayor, we have to live in the city limits to govern the city. And we have a city manager that does not, but makes a lot of decisions that affect the city and the citizens. Why not? I mean, they're coming in, we're making this, what we make, and they come in and make it pretty good. And I think if I or build a house in the city, And again, is out there, if a person wants that job, that's one of the prerequisites.
I think we should just at least put strongly encouraged or preferable and not, you know, make it like the final call or decision, but at least have some expectation, a
Well,
hope. But
I agree. I don't want to, I'm good, but I'm good,
with the
but
county,
I mean, just think about in the past, the city managers that we have had that had hard times trying to find. And I just don't want to handicap. I'm all for encouraging, but then again, let's think about, in a couple of years, that may change because the housing will be there. But as of now, we know that it's not there. It's on its way. We're making strides, but it's not there.
so we talk about we're growing or what we're doing, but we don't really believe in it. That's what it sounds like.
No, it does not sound like that. We're being realistic.
Great. And that's what it sounds like to me.
were you saying something? I'm sorry, the revenue interrupted.
This. So did we decide on the, distance from within the city? And,
I think right now making recommendation, I heard within Putnam County, the majority of.
Well, 22 and 12 miles.
So now is that gonna be a permanent residence because you've had two previous city managers that had apartments or some kind of weekly abode in Palaca or near Palaca, but they actually still lived in places outside of the county? So you're talking about their permanent residence, full-time permanent residence within the county?
That's something to consider.
That's something we need to really consider.
Again, I think it's because of that expectation that you invest in this community and it's the county, that's fine, but you know, I think we should be setting that expectation. I mean, you know, even if they rent initially, I understand the reason why somebody might rent, because until they get the working test, I can understand the apprehension of relocating and trialing. But I think there should be an expectation within a certain time frame that they, you know, the permanent residents within the county.
I believe we did that, what was like, what, 6 months that we gave one individual to become a resident?
6 months, or 6 months.
You have to think about if they have a family, a particular time that they move into, take on the position, where they are with their family, as far as their kids and their education, or moving their kids and families from their schools, if they have to sell their home. There's a lot to consider when that those type of things happen. So again, if we're gonna do it 6 month time frame, that would be something to consider. So if we're going to say, take up residence within 6 months in the county or within a 12-mile radius, that's what we need to go ahead and spell out. It looks like, I think we're just up in the air about the county or the radius.
Whatever the will of the committee, I just like, response time, time period, get somebody on the extremities of the county, we got a big county. So, whatever the will of the commission is,
So within 6 months, county resident.
Within six
Okay.
months of hire. Is there anything else you want to alter on this? Or make recommendations about? Mr. Campbell?
So, all right, not right now.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
Seems like the work was already done, so
for that. But I do have a question, since you allow me to have the floor. So. And then again, this is just one question I need to ask here. We have several department heads currently. And I think we mentioned that on the styles right now, we've already sort of like put out that we would consider the assistant city manager or city manager job. We want to put it out there. How in his recent appointment has it been 3 months, 2 months, I don't think. And I may mention when we made that appointment, when city manager made that appointment, we agreed. What about people that are in the same rank and level that he was in prior to the appointment? How would they see this process? Were they even considered their department head? Were they even considered the same? Do they have equal, I won't say playing field, but equal authority as a director? Are they all the same across the board, whether the chief, whether the airport director, whether the director of community affairs? Were they not considered? Well, the question is not to be answered now. This is just put it out there, and I consider it. Pardon me?
I asked that question already.
Again, this is something we have done in the past as a commission, appointing folks to take position rather than vetting them, looking at their qualifications. There's some people probably have been in college trying to better themselves, better position themselves for a next level job, and we just don't know about it. Not given a resume or performance evaluation. I haven't seen any of those things on any, I'll say this, on any department here. In order to make a decision, again, you guys have an advantage because you've been here terms before me. Some of you. And you can make that determination based upon, I just would like to know based upon what merits that we would just arbitrarily make those appointments from this seat. Sometimes I just think we need to think of the morale of all employees. Again, the procedures, the process that we're putting out, and what happens when people start saying it's not a fair process. And I know and that's why I want this to be a thought process that we thoroughly think about. And we all gonna have differences of opinion, but sometimes I just want thought to be out and something to think about as we're having this dialogue. It's not I favor this person, I favor that person. It's not about that. It's about us doing our job, and our job is to make these policies, make them where they're going to be fair, to make them where we're considering all, and understand that even with the suggested promotion or possible promotion, usually before you become a captain somewhere, you have to be a sergeant or a lieutenant. And you don't usually skip being use a police theory, police officer on the street and get promoted to chief. Don't usually happen. So just want that thought out there, and I want you all to think about it as we're going through this. And this isn't the policy part. So, but when we make the decision, think
Yeah,
about
we're not,
that.
and we're having to make
Think
that.
about it.
Commissioner Castro?
Thank you. Is there any statutes or policies or or somewhere that says that you have to be sergeant or anything a certain amount of time before you can move up into the pilot seat? And we're talking about morale. if we're going outside of the organization and spending this type of money, and we have an individual that qualified within the organization, what do you think that does to morals?
And to speak to, Commissioner Johnson, the fact that you mentioned there may be other people within the organization that may or may not be qualified and interested in this position. At this point, by the time City Manager Holmes leaves, which will be in May, Assistant City Manager Griffin will have been in that position for a few months by then, first of all. And second, we're talking about him being appointed interim at this time. If we were going to talk about the permanent city manager position, I think we would ask that he submit his resume along with any other candidates at that time.
Well, yeah,
Okay, Commissioner.
I think, well, if the position is open, I mean, we could open it up to internal staff if they, and see if they have an appetite for it, and to give that opportunity so that they're not, so that at least they're afforded an opportunity. But again, when you have someone who has demonstrated the ability to be able to, perform the duty, again, the city manager has the discretion, and as well as the commission has the discretion. So I think that's what we looked at. We're
The
not.
discretion for what, excuse me?
The discretion to make an appointment if we so choose. And that's the same thing as the city manager when he or she sees that an individual has carried out the duties and they have the leadership abilities and proven themselves. I'm almost sure I wouldn't recommend anybody who didn't demonstrate that. And I can give many examples of why I'm choosing, but I care not to other people see it as well. So I think what we need to do is just make sure that we're considering everything. I think we've done.
And Commissioner Campbell.
We're losing focus on the real reason of why we're in this meeting. I think we're jumping the gun with regards to the appointment of anyone at this time. Because again, we're not here for that right now. That wasn't on the call, that wasn't anything. While we all have a recommendation, while we all have it, but that's not the purpose of this meeting. And we know that in the absence thereof, the city manager, who's supposed to step up anyway. There's no doubt in that. So I think we're jumping the gun. We have to take care of this. And then once we get to that, allow that to be, but that's not why we're here.
Commissioner Campbell.
And I missed it, and that's a very valid point. However, I wanted to put it out there, just like we have public comment on every agenda. And, it goes back, and I'm not being, just heavy here and nitpicking about hijacking the meeting, but we have public comment, and that's where, community members still come up and, give their taste and give their opinion. And I think that at some point we should have opportunity to say how we feel, we do veer off the agenda a little bit, and I know that may not be good, but just wanted to give my opinion as to how I feel, where my direction, where my head is, and where we're going, and while we're making these decisions that have to do with money and the proposals and the direction that we're taking. So that's the only reason I got off the agenda.
Commissioner Warner.
I don't think that we're all we have. I think we finished the meat of everything. We talked about the policy as to how we want to move forward. And so since this was a workshop and there was a question raised, there was subsequent discussion around the reason why it came from. I think when Commissioner Jones made a comment. So this is a workshop. So I think it's fair that we can discuss this in the workshop. So I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Okay, and what is the further steps, Commissioner Campbell, would like to see us take in regard to the agenda workshop is
I
about?
would love us to bring this matter to a close. This matter regarding the procedures and the policy.
Job description.
We can make other recommendation after we bring this to a resolve.
Okay, and is there any further discussion about the job description?
Yes. Why was this a special call meeting? Because It didn't have to be special call for you, for me to be brought. Well, we haven't changed anything. We got to present it to us, whether than change, and we supposed to affect change. You know, this meeting didn't yield any new results. We have not put anything else into a policy. Or, I mean, we have procedures and those procedures haven't been followed in the past and they're not being followed right now. So, procedures may be followed, no policy has been followed. So,
I think we need to step back to the last time. Mr. Holmes, did you want to say something?
No, well, without getting into a conversation about wording or semantics, I guess the purpose of this meeting is for the commission to give you state, commission state, what procedure you want to follow from this point forward, and to put it very bluntly, straightforward and simply, do you want to go with the 3 headhunting agencies or one of the 3? Do you want to proceed with the search on that level? Do you want to proceed with the search on a different level by going back out as we did before with Indeed and so forth, which probably, well, who knows what results that'll yield. And then if you do go out with a search firm, after the search firm brings candidates and they, do just that, they bring candidates. They don't normally tell you who to pick, they bring candidates. What process do you want to follow in selecting from among the candidates that are presented?
And to go back a little bit at the last time we met, when we interviewed the remaining 3 candidates and decided that they weren't a match for the city, that was the request that we left from that meeting, that we gather together again, have a workshop to discuss the policy and procedures for future hiring practices. And so that's why we're here, as I remember.
That was a portion of it was to come up with a procedure, but to identify what is it that we want in the city manager.
Right, and that's what a
I'm
job.
just putting it, no, I'm just putting it out there, what the meeting, what the request was.
That we called for the meeting, right? They called for it, or we called?
No, I'm not saying you didn't, but I'm just telling you of what it is, what it's for.
But the job, we went through the job description, I would assume this is maybe I'm assuming wrong. What do we want to change in this that then describes what we're looking for in the city manager? That's what the job description's about.
City manager should perform the duties in those roles with whatever experience, so they bring to it, whatever they bring, they meet the criteria, where they have a public administration or business administration, it was all clear, so I don't know what else you would want.
Yeah, actually,
Interesting.
once you're done.
Yeah, I just don't know what else anybody would want to look for in a person who are applying for a city manager role if it's pretty clear in the job description.
Okay.
Have we determined some of the methods, because from what I gather, there are neighboring communities that are pretty much in the same position that we're in. Have we reached out to them to identify the method or the processes in which they are going through? As far as headhunters, as far as doing it themselves? Because again, I'll go back to what's being presented from the lesson you made. It's a clear guide and it offers 3 different methods. If we were to do the headhunter, if we were to do it in-house, or if there would be a combination of the both. Like, have we considered what's going around? Because have we reached out to neighboring to see what they are doing? Because I just, with a national search, again, I think we are gonna be pulling on the same people.
You'll be pulling from people who've been bounced around, but I've also talked to several neighboring as well as people in other regions, but they're using search firms as well. But I think we just need to do what we think is best for the city in terms of using a search firm or using a panel or whoever, but in the past, I'm not finished.
But you do not.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
That's,
I'm not finished. I'm not finished. But again, we need to figure out what path we want to take. I mean, the options are there. So let's just pick the path that we would prefer if we so choose to go that route. They're in front of us, so we can pick them and go.
My question was not answered. My question wasn't answered. You know, I'll have to be answered.
Mr. Holmes,
I've not reached out to any other cities to find out which combination of the three methods that the commissioner articulated they're using. There are three methods. Which one do you want?
I mean, so it goes back to the original. I gave my method when we first got the question. Commissioner Jones gave his method when we first opened the meeting. And then I think again, it went to N. So how do we bring it back to, I gave my recommendation, it was follow the IC, which I would keep in house and follow the ICMA. We have one for search firm. So we just need to clearly identify what it is that we want. We've had the conversation. Let's
Right.
bring it to a head.
Commissioner McCaskill.
And I would like to add.
I would prefer a search firm if we so choose to go that path.
I prefer to in-house it. Given the cost of the search firm, I think we'll end up with similar results.
So, Madam Mayor, let me just ask you this. You guys talking about cost. You realize we'll pay an hour later. We'll get somebody in here.
I guess my question would be, how would there be any guarantees of the search firm that we still would recommend candidates? There's no guarantees.
We've done the search firm. The person's not here, like we've done all of that.
Yeah.
And I believe that we have qualified people in-house that if we put it back out there, if you're gonna apply, you're gonna apply whether it's through a search form or
That's what I said as well.
so
I don't think a search firm is going to glean any different applicants than we might, and in fact, we've done that as, that never it was done, and we still had a revolving door of city managers. Yes,
Just did two different things, but
no, we didn't. We just said we agree.
Maybe you heard.
I think the three options was out there.
no, I'm not with capital.
Okay, no, maybe you have. Wonderful. Council, go ahead. Thank you. Okay, so again, we'll ask, well, how does the commission want to proceed with this process?
We just voted on.
Well, it's a workshop, we didn't really vote.
When you say in-house, help me understand, are you saying,
as we've done with the previous process.
so you're saying to have the, HR person to go ahead and advertise again, put it out on Indeed, publicize through the League of Cities, et cetera, open up the application period again, and this time, you would consider candidates who already work for the city if they apply, as well as those who are outside. Is that what I understand?
Yes, that's what I think, at least 3 or 4 years of thing.
We just talking about this, but again, I'm not pushing it to the city level right now. I'm pushing to get the finance.
Well, and that's a work in progress, if I understand, and hopefully something is.
So, yeah, but whatever the commission decides, let them know we need to do something. But, again, I like to take that burden off of staff. Because we do have, if we choose to go that route, I'm not trying to do exactly what other cities have done. We can put that burden on a search firm and have them to do it, and our staff can focus on our city operations and personnel.
Commissioner McCaskill.
Hey, I know that
okay, so have we put this to rest? Are we good, Commissioner Campbell? Go ahead, because I have a question to ask about a process. Are we good?
I think we had a consensus, so.
Madam Mayor, would you mind a motion and a vote? So we have,
Yeah, okay, can, would somebody like to see a motion on this that we just discussed?
I'll make a motion that we allow this process of city manager to be done so in-house.
Their motion, do we have a second?
That's for the sake of discussion.
Okay, discussion.
So,
I'm sorry.
so if we decided that we wanted to recommend an in-house employee for this position, what would be the process? Is that something that the current city manager can do? What would be the process? No, I mean, I'm asking because I don't know. Is that something that we would do? We would put it on the agenda item? What would be the process? Please inform.
Ms. Thomas, do you want to go down that road?
I mean, I'm asking the question. I would need to.
Commissioner, you can clarify it for me, I'm not.
If we decided that we wanted to recommend an employee for the position of city manager, or, you know, like in-house it, or if we in-house this position, say we wanted to in-house the city manager position for a week period, a 10-day period, allow employees only within the organization to apply for it and go from there. How would that process look? Is that something that we can legally do? Excuse me? Okay,
That was,
okay.
okay, at this point, before you have a
Motion.
motion about whether it be in-house or whether it should be a search firm. Okay, so the question you're asking me about is the process after you made that decision, and to whether that person that you have designated in your mind that you want to be the interim, whether they need to apply, or whether as a committee, you could reject all the ones who did apply, as you did with the previous group that were submitted to you for consideration, and still pick outside of that group.
Okay. So at this point, is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye.
For in-house.
In-house.
Madam Mayor, opposed, yes.
Yes, I was explaining to her. Any opposition?
I'll hold it down, relative turn the staff, let the staff do the job. So,
Okay, just not to you. Commissioner Jones?
I oppose because we don't have a HR director either.
Okay, so we have 3 in favor and 2 opposed. Thank you, Becky.
and we'll put it back out as we did before with, all means that we're aware of to advertise and allow for a reasonable period of time to receive applications. And then as you said a minute ago, now that's the methodology, then I guess you can direct us as to what procedure you wish to use after that. So we get X number of applications, whatever there might be.
I have a question just for clarity, and I know it's been a motion, but again, this was a workshop. So are we, by law, can action be taken in the workshop?
In my opinion, actually, the type you've taken can be taken. You're not passing an ordinance, not passed a resolution, you give staff direction. I don't see a problem with that.
I'm just asking because I want to make sure, because it says discussion, it doesn't say, I know we really have not in my time of being on the commission, taken any action, official action in a meeting.
And Ms. Thomas? We have to review this.
Commissioner, as I see it, this was a discussion. You've given us direction, which is what we asked for in this, and therefore we have received that direction and we review this.
Okay, and then to speak to Ms. McCaskill's discussion point, prior to the vote. about whether to have a period of time to just accept in-house applicants before opening up to the general public. Is there any more questions or discussions on that?
I don't think that is no.
Okay.
If they're interested, they'll apply just like everybody else.
Okay.
I wouldn't.
There is a set, I think policy as to how long usually, like it says that for HR about how long, openings are posted.
Okay.
And so I don't think that we should deviate from that or make.
Okay, you just said that was the good, okay, that's what I
Think
did.
about that. Okay. Is there anything else?
Yes, again, procedure. So let's say you get 20 applications. Some question was raised previously about whether or not staff scrutinize the applications in the correct fashion. So tell us what you wish us to do with the applications. Do you want all 20 of them presented to you? And then do you want to, at that point, conduct interviews of all 20? What do you want us to do? What do you want to do with the applications that we get?
Personally, I don't think that's a wise idea. Commissioner Campbell.
I'm not opposed to having them all, but again, I'm not, just for my recollection, because again, we do have the ability as a commission, as we have before, to bring someone that was not on the short list. But that's just for me to have, so I can look, so I can make sure, because I think what had happened in the past, that someone alluded to that they submitted an application. And I just think it was a total disagreement, but if we as a commission knew who submitted, like we can talk down some of that negative, the negative things that came with the last process. But I would like to see all the applicants, but I'm fine with going for the short list as previously done.
Well, so would you like us to submit all the applications to you and then at a meeting, you arrive at a short list?
No,
Arrive at a short list?
No, I think Commissioner Campbell
I
said
just
he'd like to see everything, but
I'm fine. I just want to see what we got, what came in. Like, I'm fine with presenting the short list as before. I'm fine with that. I just want to see
So
what came.
valuable can't say, I submitted an application.
Right, because it came up twice. I don't know if it came to anybody else, but it came to me twice that others submitted applications and was not considered, or did not even receive a phone call back. So that's why.
so I think it's just that awareness, not necessarily to develop the short list of the commission. Commissioner Jones.
I would like to receive all that's submitted and, therefore I'll be able to give feedback.
Then what, I'm sorry?
I'll be able to give feedback.
Commissioner Foreman.
Yes, I'd like to see all of them because I had a couple people who said they submitted them. And they don't feel like that their application got processed, but
So in order to receive feedback without, running a risk of violating sunshine, I think then recommendation would be we give you all the applications and then at a meeting, you tell us which ones that you want to put on the short list.
no, I'm not qualified to. Basically, I know what I've gotten, and I think I heard it from maybe a couple of board members that some people communicated that they submitted their application on resume, but it was not either received or processed or whatever it may be. So that's why, at least if we have something to that degree and we do come in contact with people, we can kind of say, hey, we did receive it and they need to be given consideration. I think this is a fair process.
So do you want to see all the applications or a list of applicants so you know?
Whatever is sent in, we can just get a copy of it. This-
Because that-
Yes.
some of them are pretty long and I'm just asking.
Electronic.
And that's fine.
I would prefer, I mean, just where I am with this is I just don't want anyone saying on the opposite side, playing devil's advocate, that I submitted an application and I feel that Commissioner McCaskill gave negative input or positive input or
went to staff and gave more, put a word in, you know, I just want to be limited to that. And so just send me a list of the applicants, just in case a call comes in and said that I submitted an application and maybe didn't get feedback. But I do have a question. If we all received 70 applications, and I think some applications came in the last time, and somebody may have been, just a general example, a manager may be at some place that had nothing to do with government. And that application may have been pulled, just as an example, not that it happened. And that person may not have received a call back. Are we expecting every applicant that got fit in, whether they were considered or not, to receive a call back? And I'm asking the commission now. Because what I'm thinking I'm hearing right now is I sent an application in and I heard nothing.
You refer back to what our policy is. What is our policy?
What is it?
That's what we're here for.
I think-
So we should, what is the policy?
Her who is HR 19.
But Mr. Holmes, is there a policy on calling people back if they apply, whether they're a qualified candidate or not?
I don't believe there's an established written policy, Madam Mayor, but
That's the
happy for
question.
you to make whatever policy. That's what I'm asking for right now is going to be directions.
Understand.
I would like to see some kind of formal communication with,
Commissioner Borman, go ahead first and then.
And if we don't have that process in place, because anytime you submit, an application for employment, you do sometimes get a receipt that, hey, we have received your application, we're in the process of, screening your application. Now, if you're selected, if you're not selected, sometimes you get, okay, well, thank you for your consideration. We have decided to do whatever moving forward. So I think something along those lines would help, and it'd be a check and balance, from a standpoint.
So I think Mr. Holmes is asking, is that what we want to see, even if it's just a short note or communication that we receive your resume application and at this point.
Sure, we'll certainly give a receipt to everyone who sends in an application, Ms. Jones. And then, you know, again, I'm a little bit, I think, uncertain about exactly, how we move forward from there. And then I'm hearing that some of you don't want to shortlist the applications yourselves. You don't want to do it at a meeting. On the other hand, if you want staff to do it, then we always run the risk that we're not putting someone on the list that later on you think should have been put on the list. So I guess we can try to shortcut that by giving you you will have all the applications. We can then submit a short list to you, and then you have the option of adding someone onto that short list from the applications that you have in your possession, should you choose. Is that a way to move forward?
I think we can live with that. It's the way to move forward. Yes. Was that the consensus of the group? Can we live with that? Idea?
I also would like to add something.
Sure, go ahead.
Point that while we're here, it's related to why we're here. And it's about policy that we need to establish in this process. When we interview candidates, whoever they may be, we interview them. And the step should be, once we interview the final interview, they make final cut. We make the decision without a 5-day recess. We make the decision as a unit. If we're gonna vote, or we're gonna give a yea or nay, should be given, not to confer outside with anyone else. Now, our job is to make these hires. And people saying that, well, I don't wanna do this, or I don't wanna see all this. That's our job. So are we gonna do the job or not? That's the question we need to ask each other. So to say, well, no, I don't want to see it. How are you going to feel? How do you feel when you answer those questions, when you get the calls of, well, I applied and I didn't get considered? Then they're accusing us of unfair hiring practices.
Then we pull the app.
If I'm serious. When we have the apps, we didn't pull them, we could respond with integrity of a transparent procedure, following policy. But if we don't create these policies now, we're not consistent with our hiring process. And that's what I'll keep pushing. I know it does matter who we select, but as we make a selection process for whoever gets the job, let's be clear, consistent, and fair. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
Commissioner McCaskill?
My request is the list of names to be outside of the process until we get the short list. If I receive a call from anyone that said they did not get selected at that time, I will, call and go through the proper protocol and see who did not. Again, my request is to get a list of the names and not the apps to be outside of the process until we get the short list. If I have to get involved before that process, the applicants are more than welcome to contact me if there are any issues.
Does anybody have anything else they want to bring to the commission this point?
We had a direction.
I believe
About what I
that
said.
they do.
This is what I have gleaned from the meeting, and I'll state it, and you can tell me if this is accurate or not. Well, first of all, as a predicate, we're going to basically, again, post the job. We're going to then receive all applications. 3, we're going to send to the commission all applications. They can be electronic. Well, okay, now, back up just a second. Part, you want to see them all. A list gives you a name. It doesn't give you anything on the application by way of qualifications, prior experience, anything like that. So will a list alone give you
Well, I
any
think we
ability
have a
to?
mix here on a commission where,
Like you are.
yeah, so I heard Commissioner McCaskill is just satisfied with having that list of
Okay.
names.
Okay.
I'm also satisfied with that. I don't need to micromanage HR or you or anybody else, so I'm satisfied with this list, and I understand the other 3 commissioners want full application. Is that correct?
I would just like, it's not gonna add anything, take anything away, but again, I'm not gonna screen the application. I'm not screening. So basically, we just need a process in place so that we know that when somebody submit, that it's processed and there's communication going back.
Okay, so the list for the full application, just, you want a list or you want full apps? One list?
List, what do you want, Commissioner Warren? You want the list of the application?
I'm either way, I just want to process that.
3 with a list and 2 with the full applications. Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Campbell want to see the full application.
This is just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Can you send
What
an
if
email? No, when I declare, okay. So is there an issue with providing an email that has both of the options? You either have, so it doesn't, if we're looking at not putting the strain on our human resources department, just send the email with both options available.
Commissioner Wynn, in all fairness, if you go take the trouble to go ahead and reduce the applications to electronic version, whether you push a button and send it to 2 of you or 5 of you, really doesn't put any extra strain on staff. So we're going to put them in the electronic format, whether you send them to 2 or 5, doesn't really matter. And if 2 don't want to look at the applications, then don't look at them.
That's fine. Whatever
Let's
works with that.
formulate them, applications out to everybody. Then staff's going to shortlist them.
Mhm.
Once staff shortlists them, my recommendation would be with the shortlist, we go ahead and do the background check, and that would include, since we would have at that point releases from the folks who applied, that would include conversation with previous employers and something besides just a perfunctory background check to see if they've been convicted of a crime. And then once we have got the short list, we forward the short list to the commission. And at that point, the commission can, if they wish, ask why or add one of the persons that were not included within the short list, but whose application was submitted. commission can add that to the group. And then as I understand it, you yourself want to interview all of the people that are on the short list and any that you add. Is that kind of a synopsis of the way you want to go?
I believe so, but just for clarification for my sake, so you, as you went through that, you are going to, at the time of talking to the shortlist applicants, you're going to get their release to do a full background check?
Correct. I'm assuming we're not going to have 20 or 30 short lists. I'm assuming we're going to have, like we did before, 5 to 7 on the short list. And 20 background checks where you talk to previous employers would be a burden. But 5 to 7, given the significance of the job, I wouldn't think would be. And then if the 5 to 7 is not, if there's somebody else you want added to the short list, then absolutely. I mean, that's.
And Ms. Thomas?
I'm kind of confused. Manager, are you talking about that, the people that we shortlist, that staff shortlist, we're going to be that, when we shortlist, and we're going to interview them?
No, I said we're going to get a consent from them. It can be in writing. I hadn't thought that we would interview this time because there were some questions about that last time. So we'll do the short list. We'll get a release from them. It can be in writing so that we can do the background check, and then we'll give you the short list. And then y'all can interview them.
Manager, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. If we're not going to be the interview, then we have no authority or legal right to ask for any kind of background, any kind of search or anything at that point. Is after we interview them. I've given a legal opinion previously, and that's the way it was. In the previous case where we had the candidates before you, we did we talked to them, but we did not interview them. We did not consider that an interview. It was only after the commission, they came before the commission, when the commission interviewed them, that we received the release from them and did the background on them.
So you mean never mind. That's your opinion, then I'll go with that.
So can we have the release integrated in the, application process? I mean, I've popped a job in, it's consent is right there. You click for consent. If it's consent, we go forward. If it's not,
I understand that, Commissioner, but I think I sent you quite a few articles and
Yeah.
cases and stuff like that. It has to do with, you have protected classes, and when you start backgrounding and interviewing for people, then you have the possibility that you are making discriminatory choices based on your age or race or gender identification, sexual orientation and religion. And instead of getting into that crap, let's just make the determination based on the job descriptions that we have now. And then you guys interview them, and then you make a choice about which one you want to shortlist. Then we'll do the backgrounds, and then we will, as Mr. Holmes did in the last round of interviews, where he asked them, "Do you consent to us doing a background check on you? You have signed this document, or Mr. Jones will send you another document where you write down clearly that you consent to us doing a background review of your."
And they would have to provide social security.
Exactly. Because we have come with the opportunity that on Google, on these online searches, where not only was, we had employees who were searching candidates, we had citizens who were searching candidates. I think some of your commissioners even received information from people in the public who had done background searches on these candidates. And what you have is information that is not always accurate, that's online. And it's something that once it is online, you cannot be removed. So let us not, when I give an opinion for the city, it is something I make my decision that I'm trying to safeguard you and the city. So I always err on the side of caution, that we will proceed cautiously, and that's how I make my decision.
Thank you.
duly noted. But my question still is, when we make a determination that we're gonna bring them in shortlist, we still go through that process. We background.
After you have interviewed them, they have not been interviewed until you make that decision that you are going to interview them. We can do what you want, just not in the order that you're asking us to do.
Right, I'm not telling you to enter, background before then, what I am asking. And I did get your point, so let's do it, but it's a step that we have to go backwards and contact them again just to get them to sign. Versus we have a signature up front, we don't have to go backwards to get a signature. We don't, am I right or wrong?
Right, but the signature alone is not enough. You're gonna need a social security number, which would be done after we interview them. They give that directly to HR and Ms. Thomas, and then they could do the remainder of that background check. The preliminary check isn't all inclusive.
Can I just- go ahead, Commissioner.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay,
Warren.
I think the last time we did an interview, during the, I guess, initial phase of the interview, there was a disclaimer, not a disclaimer, but there was a question that came from our city manager and our council for, I guess, approval to move forward with background check. And so at that point, that's what so we do the interview, we enter the interview process, then we get the approval at that point. And if they decide to not do that, then we don't move forward again.
That's what.
So,
And the only comment I'll have is that, first of all, if you don't do a background check that includes checking with previous employers, in my opinion, your process is flawed. If you do the background check, and I respect Ms. Thompson's opinion, I'll accept that as she gave it. But then what I would say is that I think you're pretty much bound to do a second interview, because if you have matters that come to light in the background check that are reflecting negatively on the person's apparent ability to or fitness for your job, it would seem to me only fair that you give that person an opportunity to explain, contradict, or in some other fashion convince you that that particular factor is not something that should disqualify them. That's just my opinion. So if you reveal or you have information that comes from a previous employer that the person was fired for incompetence, or the person was fired for fraudulent act, I would not be at all reticent about interviewing that person a second time and just flat saying, there's been some allegation or concern that you were fired from a previous job for incompetence. How do you respond to that? Give them a chance to react to that. But better to have that discussion before you make a hiring decision than have that discussion a month later when the paper or someone else brings it up in the public that you had this background of an individual and that information was available to you at the time you made a hiring decision and it wasn't acted upon. That's just my point of view. So obviously,
Yes, I don't disagree with Mr. Holmes, but most hiring decisions are based on subject to the passing of a background investigation review. Okay. So when I was hired, many seasons ago from Miami-Dade County, it was subject to me passing the background. When everybody else was hired, you're subject to passing the background investigation, not before that you do that. It's after that you have received an offer for employment.
well, then that begs the question of what is going to be considered a failure of the background. I mean, if you say I'm going to hire somebody, but we're hiring you, but it's subject to a background, okay. Your background shows no convictions, but they've been fired 6 times, 4 times for incompetence and 2 for alleged fraud. Now, is that passing the background or is that failing the background?
What our policy say.
You're making your policy right now. You tell me.
It's more than just saying we're done with it. We have to create it.
Okay,
We have to create it, Robin. Madam Mayor, we
I'm
can't.
not arguing with you, I'm just saying, what do we want to do next, what's the direction we want to take here? Kind of go around, but we need to come up with a solution.
That we legally have to do, and that's what we think our policy are.
we have the process, we have a legal process. Like Commissioner Council.
Tonight,
Well, what is it?
Well, no, I'm just saying, we have a legal process in terms of what needs to happen, and, because we just gotta hang up on the, background check, whatever it look like, in my opinion.
And I think Ms. Thomas, well, go ahead, explain to Ms. Thomas. I thought I heard, but I.
Go ahead. Madam Minister.
No, you go ahead, please.
When you have criminal kind of charges or things like that, that's an easier decision to make. You know, but also you have to think about, like Mr. Holmes says, well, what if they had been fired? Well, how long ago was that? I mean, do those kinds of things play into your decision? I mean, what age, what job, whatever. You know, they had a clean record in the past 5 years or 10 years. And it's also, I mean, part of your obligations and duty as commissioner is to make a decision based on the information that you have. And not everything is like black and white that, you know, you have so many, that they got, I don't know, less than stellar evaluations. Well, that's a reason for us not to hire them. Or that they had an issue where their contract was not renewed. Because when you're a city manager, it is quite possible that you're not gonna have your contract renewed at one time, sometime or another during your career.
Well, that's why I've asked for a standard of what it means to fail a background check.
Yeah.
Or else you bring them back in and you ask them to explain it, then you decide whether or not those circumstances.
I thought we would bring them back again if there was a question that wasn't a conviction, something that was because of the lifespan of the city manager and that position can vary and can be very short based on the.
We all. Didn't give them the opportunity to be honest about it yesterday. It was terrible. I know.
I think that, as a city leader leading the city, there are some things that we can have as exclusions and that fail on the background. I think that need to be, identified. And we won't say I won't say any felony, because the writing a bad check could be a felony, and that could, like, Madam Attorney said, it could have been a long time ago, but it's still gonna be on your record.
Yeah.
So it has to be, but we do need to put it out there, because, you know, probably nothing more embarrassing than someone getting a great feeling that they might land a job, and then something come up that was
Right.
15 years later, but it still is a disqualified. So we need to identify those and put it in our policy. That's what we want policy makers on, keep saying, until we realize that we do hire people and we do create policy. We do that. That's what we were elected to do.
I should have brought this up earlier, but we limited this conversation to city manager. However, it was supposed to be policy making for hiring process of not only the city manager, but the city attorney to follow.
And the finance.
In the finance department, in there. I would feel like HR director.
We limited ourselves in this conversation, and it was one doctor. The direction was one way, but it should have been us coming up with a policy as a whole to address the higher needs of city manager, city attorney, and finance director.
Well, there is a little difference in that the city manager appoints everything other than the city manager, subject to your confirmation. You hire a city manager from the outset.
But again, the reason for this meeting was to address policy for all of that, not just city manager.
But we don't hire, we rely on the city manager to hire everything but the city manager essentially. Is that correct? Is that correct by city?
They appoint and you confirm.
Yes.
So I mean, the confirmation process, I would not think it'd be the same as the hiring process, because.
But I'm just stating, that was the initial for us to have a conversation about policy across. We limited to this, but again, if we go back and look at minutes and all of those things, this was one facet of this meeting.
Anyway, so do we have, where are we now? Go ahead and.
I think one of the things that Commissioner Jones has said, identifiable on her, the current city manager. For example, what would you consider, things that would disqualify an applicant for the job? For example, things such as misdemeanor, if these type, you know, how they identify certain things when you're applying for jobs, and they would say these are disqualifying factors. These are the identifiable indicators that will disqualify you for a job as a city manager, and they will kind of identify this. Is that something that you're looking to see in the policy, Commissioner Jones? Also with the application process, when we were talking about what we were on, what is it? What is it that we can legally do? In the application process, they'll ask you those criminal background questions and ask you, you know, if you have ever been arrested within the last 5 years or had any type of charges. And then once you interview, usually we do conduct a background check. Because surely we wouldn't want to conduct a background check if you're not going to be interviewed and considered for the job. So it's a certain process that you have to do. So what?
Sure, that's why we would ask that question about the arrest record.
Scam conviction. In applications when you're filling out, I don't know if it's for this, in this realm, but I'm just asking what he's looking for, so we'll know what in his mind, what is he asking for policy? And asking, what is he asking about? When you're doing the application process, what are you looking for? You're filling out the application process. And then they come in for the interview, and then we conduct the background check. Is that what you're asking? Just trying to get clarification so we can put a policy in place for the procedure that we're going to use.
Can I speak?
Sure.
And I'll leave it at this, because, you know, you set your policy, but this theoretically is the most important hire you make. It's the only hire you make, this being the city manager. Why would you want to bind yourself to an arbitrary standard of factors that disqualify an applicant? Because your perception, Commissioner Campbell, about the significance of a bad check charge 20 years ago might be different from your perception of the significance of that. And your perception, and you each have the right to weigh factors that might be negative and to decide how significant those factors are. So I guess my question is, why would you not, given the time and the trouble that you're taking to try to make a selection, why would you, if you have the background checks done and they all come back glowing, not a thing in them, then enough said, you don't need to do other interviews. But if you get some negative things back, why would you not want to bring that person in and you decide for yourself how significant an issue is? Because your individual thought processes, your individual value judgments, your individual perceptions may be different, and you're all entitled to those. If there's nothing wrong with your having your own ability to weigh the significance of, let's say, a conviction where adjudication of guilt was withheld. You can decide that. Instead of you putting arbitrary factors down here and saying, okay, do you not consider whether they've been fired for a job at all? That's not going to be a disqualifying factor at all. So you got somebody who comes up and they've been fired 6 times, but that's not on the list.
Yeah.
So then you get them. And then you deal with that when things go bad and the paper brings out the fact that you hired somebody who's been fired 6 times before. Or you say, yeah, that's a disqualifying factor. If they've been fired 3 times, that's not the 4 times they can't serve. Why wouldn't you want to at that point talk to them and ask them, hey, you've been fired a couple of times. Tell us, do you want to explain that? And then you make your own value judgment. So I guess my question is, I guess, and it's up to you. You can come up with an arbitrary list that you say is a disqualifier, and then you can, some things may be on that list that are important, some things may not be. Some things may be on that list that in the overall scheme of things maybe aren't so important. But I can just imagine that the process of trying to come up with something that's really, really telling there. So you say, okay, you hadn't been convicted of a misdemeanor in the last forever, or the last 5 years, or the last 10. You haven't been fired for a job, or not the last 5 years. But if you've been fired in 4, that's different than 6. Do you understand how arbitrary that can be? Why would you not want to apply your own judgment to that?
Right.
And I'll leave it at
It's
that.
risky to go down that road.
Because we're policymakers, and that's what we need to do, set one. And if I ask this question, Ms. Jones, what is our threshold of policy right now as far as disqualified background?
We don't have a policy, but if doing a background, and I'm simply talking about, going through, pulling the federal background check and that type thing. If there's something on the background, felony charges or whatever, then it's something that is discussed, like take to the city manager, we look over it to determine if this something happened 30 years ago, or if this something happened in the last 2 years, or 5 years.
And also whether it's a violent felony.
Yeah. And so it's a determining factor, it's just not anybody that's hired on there, but if something happens, say, and I always let, the city manager look at those type of things if it's on there. And the time frame and what it is also determine whether or not they're gonna disqualify. We don't have anything in policy written as to what a disqualify is. There's no policy.
Based on time frames and how good it is.
Yeah.
How serious.
And how serious it might
Somebody
be.
did an 18 and hasn't done anything since they're
Exactly.
45. I think those are all factors.
I've given people chances that just got out of prison. You can stay. I've given people chances that just got out of prison for an armed robbery because they went in at 8-10, they served 10 in. And they had recommendations, and the fact that they went in at such a young age and they served 10 in, I felt deserved a second chance. And then there have been, and that one didn't work out so good for us. No, it didn't. It didn't work out. It did not work out so good for us. But, so, on the other hand, we have disqualified some that have had multiple charges, but they weren't, they weren't as serious. And then also you have to decide whether or not there's an issue of whether they have to be bonded or not, because all that has to be factored into the equation. So, when you're dealing with human affairs, it's not always easy, and you're dealing with humans and backgrounds, and as the commissioner said, everybody's got a little bit of a history. I've never found it easier, and I've not been city manager, but almost 3 years, but I was chief assistant city attorney for a few years. I run my own law firm and other business for a lot of years. Dealing with people and trying to set, who's gonna make a good employee and who's not, you can't always apply a litmus test to it, in my opinion, but then, that's just my
I
opinion.
agree. I did hire as a public administrator for many years. It varies from person to person and the situation and the position itself. There are a lot of things to consider. Go ahead, Commissioner. You have something else to say?
So we don't have a policy.
Policy is to do thorough background check would be fair and honest with you.
So really why when we do a background check, it's not real qualified. It's not a disqualifier, because we could send in there, we have a background check. If they disclose, everybody, we get all that. So,
This is your chance to tell us what the policy should be, Commissioner. Tell me what disqualifier you want.
this commissioner is up here with 4 other people, and I'm saying we have dialogue now to decide that. That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to, this meeting say, let's go forward with policy. If we sit here and we don't create one, for these 2 hours we've been here, we just came just to talk. So I'm saying, are we gonna have one? We said, if that was advice for everybody else, we don't have a background check. I want to be clear on it. So when you start asking, we're gonna run a background, and we just spending money to do a background, obviously we don't need to. We hired on robbers, we hired, and again, don't get me wrong, I'm a guy about second chances as well. I was the guy to say it, everybody happened yesterday. We might find something in any one of our backgrounds. That wasn't the point, though. The point is, what is the threshold? Should we know? That'll stop people from the embarrassment of applying if they have such charge. And I'm not saying anybody we have vetted to this point had one. Matter of fact, personally, the candidates that we had, I didn't see anything on a criminal side of a background that would disqualify them. So personally, I would like to know, again, what are we looking for in the city manager? That we can find those things.
So I can go back to, I'm trying to see, was it a background issue? Is there something that we need to see in a candidate that's gonna catapult them forward? Or to say, yes, this is a good guy, other than, I hear the consensus almost saying, just, let's promote somebody internally.
So, in the policy, I think the city manager recommended, if there's a background check conducted, and something as far as the time frame, you can come up with a time frame, is how egregious if there are any charges and how egregious they are, we can bring that individual back in and give them the opportunity to come before us as a commission, and we can speak with them. And then we, the commission, because any commission after us does not have to follow the policy, and we can decide whether or not we're gonna bring that person on. Because it's giving them an opportunity for a second chance. Because think about time frame. Do we wanna say if they did it 15 years ago, does it define them more character? Or 15 days ago, if they robbed somebody 15 years ago, did 10 years and got out. I mean, every case is different. Maybe that was armed robbery case, a person didn't work out, but how many others may? So we need to just think about a time frame and how egregious it is, whether or not we're going to consider the candidate. Is that something, does that give us something to go on?
Okay, the city manager asked me this question, and I'm answer. You say, are there any that I feel that should be disqualified? And I think fraud,
A conviction of, or just
conviction of.
Just conviction, okay.
You can be charged with anything. Fraud, theft, sex battery, sexual battery, type of crime. Those are,
Sexual battery and harassment, so think about that on the job, sexual harassment on the job.
in
So in that type of
you
position,
say sex battery, you can't get charged with those. If you get charged with that job, that's not I'm talking about criminal offenses. I know about sexual battery, sexual harassment, I'm gonna be like, the chief could probably, confirm or deny that. But those things,
So conviction,
if you want to,
only of the offenses of fraud, theft, or sex battery, correct?
those are mine. So, yeah, right.
So domestic violence,
murder,
murder, none of those would disqualify.
Hopefully, then you gotta put some input. That's what you think. You're thinking of. You think we should,
That's why I'm trying to point out the difficulties in coming up with an arbitrary list of crimes. So you left murder off the list, you left any crime involving, public, malfeasance of duty. You left off trafficking in drugs, possession of drugs with intent to distribute. None of those would be disqualifiers.
yeah, I left those intentionally because I wanted some room for the city manager to be also input. So we have opportunity to put the policy together. So that's recommendations. Then that'll be a recommendation from staff. Great. I'm glad we did that. So any other commissioner have anything that you feel that should go on as a disqualifier for a city manager if they apply for this job?
I don't, thank y'all for putting those together, but I don't know if it would be appropriate to start listing out, making a list, because again, we can miss a major thing out there, and we will have to hire the person, in my opinion. So I like to err on the side of allowing for people who operate in that realm to help us create. I'm not an HR person, I'm not an attorney, so I can say a few things, but I don't want to go there and start adding items to the list. Then we got an array of other things that I think that's probably some dangerous parts.
point one taken, Commissioner, but we do not want to leave out what our fellow commissioners feel that just meant did nothing to.
Right, well, I think we'll just add those, and then we can put whatever, we need to put other things, so we can protect, make sure that we put some level of protection. We have to put protection. Because if we missed an item, and we have to hire somebody who has done some heinous stuff, you know that.
I also think we're relying on the
It
professional.
goes back to what,
That's what I'm doing.
it goes back to what the professionals said at the beginning, Commissioner Boyle.
Right. Professionals. I deal with, whole different background. So I'm just,
Are we in recess because we want to make sure our fellow commissioner
let me,
knows? We left the meeting that we, oh, wow.
Well,
He's gone.
He is not returning.
that's gone.
we can vote on it, but I'm.
Okay, I think again, with that, he left, and that's his decision to do, now he's an adult. I mean, I will have with him.
Leaving.
It's not the problem with leaving, the problem that I had is that you brought this matter before,
And you,
and then the matter.
yeah, and left.
And so. That's my.
We just wanted to make sure that, you know, the meeting was not null and void, and we were giving our fellow commissioners the respect to make sure that we were addressing this issue about creating policy. But we didn't know that he left, so. What is the pleasure of the,
That we go with the
Commissioner.
recommendation of.
but the professional said at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what
And I concur, so I think what we're saying in terms of direction is what's been discussed several times. And what are you saying?
I think he's in.
I'm not saying anything, I just said we go with the recommendation of what was stated.
And I think we concur with that, are we all agreeing with that? Yes. Oh, that's- I will. Okay, we're looking for a final recommendation to, city staff as to how to proceed with this project. And, you know, we wanted you to come back. If you expect them, we didn't want to exclude you. So at this point, the discussion is whether to go with what was recommended by City Manager Holmes and Ms. Thomas, and just move forward with this process without adding a lot of exclusions and allowing them to do their job.
I will take that route.
Okay. And we're all in favor of that, and you?
You have to wait for me.
Okay.
You're important too.
Yes, well, you're one of us, and we have to have the thoughts of everyone. Okay. Is there anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.